on for the work session. Let's see, Scott, I believe you and Tammy have an initial presentation before we get into the actual individual budget.
Yeah, so
categories.
a couple of things. So as we start, and part of the reason why we're going to do a little recap before we hop into the budget work session is because we take each one of these budget work sessions, we post them to our website, so somebody who isn't able to join us live time or watch us on cable, they can go back and they can watch just specifically the budget work sessions to understand where we are. And to put some context to this one as a follow-up to the last time we gathered, this is going to be much shorter, but here we find ourselves. It's January 12th. We're moving along our timeline. We're going to have this budget work session today where we're being joined by all of the division leaders as well as directors and subject matter experts into the budget so that they can answer any questions that may come forward from the board to clarify. Next week is the public hearing where we're going to hear from people in the community as far as what we have proposed for our operating restricted and unrestricted budget for next year. Then we have on the 25th a Board of Ed meeting and a budget work session as well. And if all goes well, February 1st, we may have to come back together again just to do our last Board of Ed review of what's in the budget to finalize, to send that over to the county commissioners because we have pledged that we will have our budget submission to them by that first day in February. Just as a reminder, we have a $252.7 million budget that we are currently working in 2023. For 2024, we are proposing $278.7 million budget, which is a 25.9, round up, let's call it, a $26 million increase to the unrestricted budget to do operational services for the 2024 school year. Local funding, so the majority of our funding, we didn't put the pie chart in there, but half comes from local, about half comes from state, and a little sliver comes from federal and other sources, but half and half. So on the local funding side this year, we have $121.5 million operating budget. We are looking for $130 million for next year. That is an $8.5 million increase, or 7%. That's an important number. We are seeking a 7% increase in funding locally. That does align with what we've been seeing on average, inflationary-wise, CPI-wise. It's not out of the norm that things cost about 7% more. So that is the request that's coming to the county commissioners of $8.5 million. On the state funding side, we don't have state numbers yet, nor do we have any way to appeal whatever numbers they tell us they're going to give us. It is a formula-driven calculation, and the formula is exceptionally challenging. It is based not only on what we are to receive based on our enrollment, but then it's also differentiated by who's enrolled in our schools, whether they're economically disadvantaged or English language learners or homeless or what have you, or special education. But that whole total amount is also wealth equalized, and we'll come back to that. But we believe, to the best of our knowledge, using the information that we have right now, that we should anticipate a state funding increase of $16 million, or up to 13% from the state. That may happen. That may not happen. Hopefully, we're going to know by the end of
Next Friday is
next Friday. Next Friday, they're going to release the numbers. So when we gather together to talk, we'll have real numbers for the next work session. We'll have real numbers from the state. While we were doing our work last week, we presented, that's all old information, we presented it last week. While we were working last week, this week, we come back to do a work session. The county commissioners did their first budget work session on Tuesday of this week. Now, what they covered in their first budget work session is their first blush on what they believe their revenue forecast is going to be for the 2024 school year, fiscal year, 2024 year. So they give a projection of what they think the property tax and the income tax and related other services are going to be. So they have a dollar amount that they can then work from as they entertain everyone's budget request for the upcoming year. That is usually done in December. They determined not to do that in December because they had 2 new members coming on as county commissioners. That being said, it's an hour and 50-minute budget work session. You can go right on the Commissioner of St. Mary's County YouTube page and click on it, and you can watch it. Also attached in their board docs is the work session agenda, a presentation that was included in that. It wasn't presented, but it was included in that packet, and then a lot of their supporting documents for the discussions that they had. A lot of stuff is in there. A lot of stuff is in there, and that conversation for that hour and a half ranged over a whole bunch of topics. And again, this is usually done in December, so then we have an opportunity to consider the available resources and money so that we can then help fashion our budget to align to known resources. That didn't happen. That's where we are right now. We are right where we always have started for the last, this is my 9th budget, so I guess this is the 9th time. Part of that initial budget work session is the CFO, Jeanette Cudmore, presenting this document, which is a projection of the next 5 years of what they believe that their expenses are going to be. So they can then take a look at their revenues to see how well their revenues align to their anticipated expenses. I don't know when they get together to decide what they're going to do with this, but this is the first time we're seeing it. For this year, Jeanette Cudmore presented that on the county side, all of their departments under county government, they're going to increase their expenditures by 4% each year for the next 5 years. So I guess from whatever data they have, they believe that their costs are going to go up 20% over the next 5 years, and they built that into their budget for their departments as well as for elected officials, which is the very small in there. The Circuit Court, Orphans Court, Office of the Sheriff, State's Attorney, County Treasurer, all of those groups are going to require or be provided a 4% increase each year over year over year over year for the next 5 years, so 20% increase over the next 5 years. The boards and agencies were slated for a 2% increase each year over year, or a 10% over the next 5 years, I guess. And that is, again, that's your health, agriculture, social services, board of election, things such as that. The school system finds itself where we kind of start each year, which is the county commissioners are not required by law to provide anything to public schools above maintenance of effort. The law is that you must provide maintenance of effort, which is basically flat funding. So what they've done in their 5-year budget is they've said that their departments and elected officials are going to increase by 4% each year for the next 5 years. Other boards and agencies are going to increase by 2% for the next 4 years. And the school system, they're putting as a placeholder in for the next 5 years flat funding. A modest increase at their calculation of maintenance of effort of about 0.8% for next year, and then for 2025, no money whatsoever, new money, and then a modest between $1 and $2 million over the next several years after that. That's represented on the bottom, maintenance of effort, and it has 122, 122, 124, 126, 129 over the next 5 years. Those are the numbers that were provided to the county commissioners from the Department of Legislative Service, from the Accountability Implementation Board, from MSDE. That's what the state is telling the counties they will have to contribute to public education to fund the blueprint. It is not on them. The commissioners are putting in place the numbers that the state gave to them for the funding of public schools. I cannot stress enough that the blueprint funding doesn't make sense. There is no way that we are going to, in St. Mary's County Public Schools, give everybody a 10% salary scale adjustment from 21, 22, 23, 24, have starting salaries of $60,000 for all of our teachers by February 1, 2027, be able to offer all-day pre-K for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, to have teachers only teach 60% of the day and all the wraparound services without more money. That money, half of it comes from the state and half of it comes from the county. So again, the county commissioners are doing what I imagine almost every county commissioner group is doing. They're putting in place the numbers that were provided for the state so they can forecast out what they're going to have to spend on education in their county. It puts us in a really challenging position because where we're starting is we're going to get $1 million more from the county commissioners. And we're asking for, if you want to go back to that slide, $8.5 million. So we're right there. But again, on the county side, they're just using the numbers that were provided to them from the state. And this is why we go through this process every year where we can discuss where we are. And we're of course we're going to seek, as we always have sought, above maintenance of effort. And anybody who thinks that maintenance of effort is adequately funding anything, that's a real challenge. There is no other organization in the world where we said we're going to give you the exact same amount of money each year, and that's going to be how you maintain yourself. I don't know. That's where that is. So we start where we started every single year. What is of note is that in this work session, somehow they leapt from this is what we anticipate our revenue to be, and here are some of the considerations that should be included in a thoughtful work session, right? They acted on giving everybody in county government. I don't know who's included in that. It could be everybody. It could be all the county employees. It could be sheriff's deputies. Could be corrections. I'm not sure who falls under it. But they moved to give all of their employees a 4.5% COLA, effective for all intents and purposes immediately in this current year, in effective March or April. Commissioner Hewitt moved that they do it. Scott Ostro seconded it. They all voted. I don't know where that sits because it was a budget work session. It wasn't. I don't know where that is, but that does mean that they're going to have to spend a certain amount of money this year for that. And it absolutely means that next year, of any money that's available, $3.7 million of it is going to go directly to county employees for a 4.5% COLA. I don't know. The other thing that was proposed is a step for them, which is $900,000, 5% health increase. There's several things that are in there, but they did vote to give all of their employees, effective for all intents and purposes, immediately a 4.5% COLA.
So on the work session, if no one has watched that work session, you don't have to suffer through the full 1 hour and 50 minutes. You could probably jump in at like 1:40 and get the gist of it, which is what Dr. Smith just talked about. It's incredibly troubling because with it being outside of a meeting or an action item, they've now committed monies for fiscal year 2023, which will then directly impact their fiscal year 24 budget, which is what they're working on. And they've done that without having, from my understanding of watching the meeting, there's not a single county department nor the sheriff's office, no one has turned in any type of budget requests as of Tuesday when they discussed this.
I think they were due at the end of this.
Right, they were due at the end of this week.
Tomorrow.
So all of this for 5 individuals who campaigned on transparency and fiscal responsibility, all of this seemed to work outside of what I consider and what we do over here as a normal process for approvals. So, it's pretty much, hampered the entire budget process now going forward, because with this 4.5% increase, they've automatically committed monies for next year without having any look at anything that the budgets or the county budgets are expecting otherwise than what those percentages are that Ms. Cudmore loaded in at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
So,
It was difficult to determine what they're actually anticipating revenue will be for next year, but it looks like it might be $9 or $10 million worth of new money, perhaps, 4 of which is gone. Commissioner Hewitt also moved to lower the homestead tax cap from 3% down to 2%. Scott Ostro seconded it, but it didn't get approved unanimously. That would have diminished anticipated revenue. I'm not sure where we stand
Right.
with all of this. The one thing that I do know is that our state numbers are based on wealth equalization, which means that the more wealth a county has in property, so everybody's property values across the state of Maryland have gone up 20% in the last year alone. St. Mary's County is higher than that. The value of homes and the income that's earned by the people who live there, the state, they don't care what your tax rate is. You could be Talbot. Talbot has a 0% homestead tax credit. Your taxes can't go up in Talbot. I don't know how that works, but either way, that's the way that works. They don't care what your tax rate is. They base it on your capacity that you have within the county. So your property values and your income, the wealthier you are, the less the state will give to us in funding. That's why it's so challenging for Ms. McCourt to adequately forecast what we're going to get from the state, because it is wealth equalized. It's not, when the state says everybody gets $10,000, they don't. Some people get $12,000 and some people get $8,000. So we're still waiting to see how this all works out. But when you lower tax rates and decrease the revenue coming into a county, understand that if your county is becoming wealthier and your property worth more value, the state will be sending less money as well. Those two things are going to start working in concert with each other. And at the end of it, the school system's left. We don't have any place to go for money other than our local funding partners. The state doesn't modify, it does its formula, and that's what you get. The federal government does its formula, and that is what you get. So we're just really challenged with yesterday. It's gonna, we always know where we're gonna start. You know, we start at maintenance of effort, and then we put forth the case as to why, and then we move from there. But yesterday was kind of challenging, and I'm not exactly Tuesday. I'm not really exactly sure. I look forward to next week to see where we are with all of it.
I do give credit to Commissioner Colvin. He did try to slow it down, you know, when it was all happening, and like the frenzy of spending in the last 15 minutes, you know, it just wasn't successful.
Yeah. All right. Next slide is just to remind us, before we even start talking about the budget, so outside of wealth equalization, right, because that's a really important thing. If you want to lower taxes, that's awesome. Make sure you have enough money to take care of the things you need to take care of, and then lower taxes. I live here. I'd love to have my taxes. I'd like to pay no taxes. That's great. I mean, I can, you know. Blueprint funding, a 10% salary increase by June 30th, 2024. We were required to do this by law. It is the law. The current negotiated agreement that we had did not get us to 10%. It only got us to 8.75.
Because they changed the rules.
Because they changed the rules, and steps don't count. So we had to open negotiations. We believe there's a ratification meeting this evening. And then when we come together next time, we'll be able to talk about it specifically. But that 10% salary increase is what's driving where we are right now. That's the most immediate part of where we are. The next is that $60,000 minimum salary by July 1, 2026. That's a lot. We're supposed to get $1 million from the state and turn around and give that $1 million away almost immediately to the Tri-County Workforce Development Board. Where we sit with starting salaries, because that was the conversation on Tuesday, was the fact that we have vacancies and we cannot recruit and retain, and people are jumping ship and going someplace else. Our starting salaries for teachers are 5th from the bottom. We are about $1,500 behind Calvert, and we are $5,000 behind Charles. We do not have a competitive teacher salary when we compare to all the other counties. One of the things that the blueprint is creating is a wage war, where the counties that have the money and have the support, they're going to plow it into their teachers' salaries, and so they're going to take from people who aren't able to be competitive like that. Howard County and Washington County are not going to have, and honestly, Charles County, they're not going to have problems filling their teaching positions because they offer $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 more than other counties. And Howard County in particular, Dr. Martirano, the former superintendent who's now there, has said $60,000 is a floor. Howard County's drive is to be at like $65,000 to start so that they can draw all the talent to them. So there's St. Mary's at the bottom. Our starting salary is $49,700. It was also a statement made by Commissioner Hewitt that sheriff's deputies need to have an increase in salary because they don't make what teachers do. A starting salary for a teacher, for a sheriff's deputy in St. Mary's County is $55,000 plus bonuses. So there you are. The lowest paid teachers in the state of Maryland are Garrett County, which is basically West Virginia, Queen Anne's, Caroline, and Worcester, which are basically Delaware, right? And St. Mary's County.
Which is water.
Which is water, yeah. There's no place for us to go. This is a problem that we have to solve. This is a problem that we have to solve. And the people who think that they're helping us solve it are not. They are making it worse. At the end of the implementation, you're going to see that the people in Western Maryland and the Eastern Shore and Southern Maryland, and when I say Southern Maryland, I mean just St. Mary's County, because somehow Charles has got it figured out in Calvert. Calvert has a 10% homestead tax cap, by the way, and we're trying to drive ours down to 2%. Interesting. Either way. So this is where we are. And so within this budget, understand that we're asking for more money, but we're asking for more money because we recognize that we have to pay people to keep people. And the good news is that the people who are with us in St. Mary's County, they teach in St. Mary's County because they love this county and they love the people with whom they work and they love the kids. Because it sure as heck isn't about the money when you can make $5,000 more by just driving an extra 20 minutes up the road. Not that anybody should do that. So, I'm not even going to go through, that's how much it's going to cost. We don't even care. Moving on. So let's talk about the budget. And let's start with category 1. I do appreciate the fact that we created a Google sheet that was shared with all of the board members so that they could enter questions as they were encountering them as they were going through the budget. Please, you're not restricted to those questions. Other questions can come up as we go through. We have, again, with us each one of the division heads as well as directors from each one of the departments to answer any specific questions you may have, and we will start with administration.
Good morning. So the administration category reflects an increase of $598 million, $598,000, 15.1% increase. The highlights again are funding for salary increases, network switches and access points, a new SAF auditor, a new blueprint accountant, and a new human resource staffing manager. This is under tab B of your binders. And Mrs. Bailey, would you care to lead us through the questions, or do you want to go?
I have the Google Doc, hopefully the right version. All right, so the first question we had was on page 4, which was category 7102, which was the assistant superintendent, a reallocation of resources. And I think that was moving, the answer is that we are moving it from HR to fiscal services?
Correct.
Okay. All right, and then next question was on 7109. There was an increase in that line item as well.
That was an abolishment of the insurance and retirement accountant position mid-fiscal year this year, and that was moved up to the coordinator position.
Okay. All right. So that's all we have for that one. Does anyone, as you have gone through, anything else on tab B in your books?
I do not.
And the one thing to realize is that, you know, especially if you're comparing increases to increases across categories, you're seeing a 15% increase in this category, but that's predominantly driven by the new SAF auditor, a new blueprint accountant, and new resource staffing manager. These are three positions that are coming into us that we absolutely positively would not need if there was not the blueprint. If somebody would have said back when all this started, you know what, we just need to provide schools more money. How about if we just increase school funding by 5% each year for the next 10 years, and keep track of all the student performance outcomes that they always do, we would be fine, but there isn't. What we're being asked to do with following every dollar down to the child, and 75% has to be sent at the school, and we have to make sure that all of the people coming through are, I mean, it is a staggering amount of work.
Right. And for anyone who's new to this, so what we basically have up here is, and Tammy implemented this, I believe, your first year, is literally like a chart of accounts for each
It's a line by line.
area. Well, it's a chart of accounts, right?
Right.
And then it shows what our actuals are for the last 2 years, the current approved budget, then the recommended, and then whatever the delta is. So if it's an increase or decrease, then there's actually very detailed notes
And the
about
notes
what
are
it is.
absolutely what the directors are submitting.
Right, exactly. So if it seems like we don't have a lot of questions, it's only because the prep work in front of this has been so immense that, you know, everything's answered. So I think it saves everyone time, especially when we look at all of the resources that are seated in this room right now. So with that, we will move on to
Mid-level administration
mid-level, yes.
category is a requested increase of $1.7 million, or 9.3% increase. That includes funding for salary increases and Microsoft support for expanded services, data security platform enhancements, Google Workspace for education, SAN servers and storage, firewall, mid-level administration laptop refresh, a new charter school secretary, and a new program analyst, also to support Blueprint. And this is under tab B in your binder.
right, and we didn't have any questions under tab C.
Tab C.
Tab
This
C.
is tab C.
Tab C.
Right, okay, so the first one was, on page 13, 7450, there's a large explanation here, the increase was a little under, $200,000. And really, it was just a translation of some of the abbreviations that we had.
So the first sentence on there, it's a communication cost for Network Maryland to support the ISP, which is the internet service provider. Is there additional questions
I
on
think
that
that was it.
particular? Okay.
Everything else, Net Maryland, I didn't know, I was not familiar with that one, that was definitely mine. Anyone else on that page? If not, then we will move on to page 20. 20.
So the question on page 20 was regarding the equity costs that were requested. And I apologize, but I had eliminated a note on that page, so I provided that to you on the Google document. And that was for an equity book study, office supplies, storage cabinet, and a parent resource fair folders and resource books.
Okay.
All right, does anyone have any questions on that?
No.
All right, and then on the next line item down, 7433 was, there's a question on the equity conference details.
Yes.
And I think
so
they punted
Ms.
that to Kelly Hall.
Yes.
So Dr. Hall. It's like the Price is Right, right. Join us.
Come on down.
And I assume that this one will change marginally because the IRS rate has increased.
Correct.
Yes.
It's 65.5, up from 62.5.
So this is a projection for a conference. Typically, MSDE will sponsor or endorse a conference. And so the intent, people haven't gone for several years, would be like the equity assurance coordinator would go in each of the extra pay for extra duty people. They're typically in the summer, so you'll see like a per diem cost, you'll see a lodging cost, in 7433, you'll see all of that broken out. Right now, there has been no direction from MSD about, hey, we'd like you to go to this. Examples in the past would be like their federal conference that they've run in the summer. MELFIN is another one, which is the Maryland English Language Learner Network. So we're anticipating that, but we haven't heard anything specific. So we did a projection of cost. We knew exactly what we had at the time. You're right, mileage will change as it changes every year, but we put it in there as a placeholder.
Okay. Anyone? All right, thank you, Dr. Hall. Okay, all right, and then the other one was just the same thing.
Same
That
thing.
was me. It didn't foot, so.
Oh, the second one was me.
Right, because it didn't, but it's
Right.
reference to the,
Yep.
to the one above, yes.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, Tammy, on to instructional salaries and wages. Anyone
Instructional-
else on anything in tab C? You're good, Mary?
So this is under tab D.
Okay.
There's a requested increase of $7.4 million or 8.3% increase to support funding for salary increases, a reallocation of the Blueprint pre-K expansion positions from restricted fund, 16 positions, reallocation of 2 teachers from Title II, a new charter school guidance counselor, 3 new certified athletic trainers, 3 new ESOL teachers, 3 new high school PE health teachers, a reclassification of an IRT mentoring induction to 11-month, and an increase in substitute rate of pay.
Okay, let's see, the first question I think is on page 29, the
Which
seven.
is, yeah,
Go
which is
ahead.
back in tab C,
Yep,
or D.
Tab
yeah.
D?
yeah,
Yeah,
tab D.
D. Lapsed salaries.
Yeah, and it was, that was just, I think my question, whether it was all lap salaries or turnover, like if we were actually turning over positions and,
And it's a combination of both.
that's right, okay. All right. Mr. Watson, the athletic trainers, is the next one. So if I look at back in the contracted, I think we paid $100,000 to $125,000 annually for our athletic trainers. So technically that it's an offset in a later account.
Yes.
Right, so it's not as if, like, the line item that we see here is going to be all absorbed. There's an offset that we're taking out of an expense later on.
That's correct.
Okay. So my question was, so I know we have a contract, and then I also, what was it, Kathy? I think House Bill something required everyone to have, that during sporting events, we have people that are trained to use the,
AEDs and also the ultra cooling
Right.
for heat stroke.
right.
The
So
cool water
my-
immersion tubs.
Right, and that just went into effect, what, this July?
Yeah, that was House Bill 836.
Right,
Yep.
yes, thank you. Okay, so with that, and then obviously with all of what we've seen over the past week and a half with accidents on field injuries,
Right.
Yes.
not in our, obviously not in our schools, I just need your thought process, because my guess is that based on the hours that even I see the athletics trainer at my son's high school working, I'm sure it's capped, and I'm sure he exceeds it by the time we get to the spring semester.
That's correct. We've had a great relationship with ProFlex Physical Therapy. We have a certain amount of hours that we can afford based on our budget requests and based on what they charge. They were $32 an hour for several years, and they did not request an increase during our last contract. This past contract, they've increased to $39 an hour. So the number of hours that we are able to provide our student athletes this year is actually less than it was last year because of that increase. They're the only ones to bid as well. So across the state, trainers are at a premium. Just I can tell you wholeheartedly that last year and currently Calvert County has 2 of 4 high schools with a trainer. Charles County has 5 of 7. Montgomery County is missing 11 out of like 28 high schools. I can tell you Montgomery County has in their budget request for 30 athletic full-time trainers. Howard County has put in for full-time trainers as well. Many of my colleagues across the state have put in for full-time trainers. A lot of them have not made it through to the first round of budget, so I appreciate that. And we are requesting 3. That would increase our hours Depending on the year and the cost that we have, that would increase our hours per school to 1,484 hours that an athletic trainer could provide services for, and currently we are at 940. So by making them full-time employees, we certainly increase upwards of 500 more hours per school that we would do that.
Okay, and we were running short by the time we got to the spring
We
sports season.
certainly were annually. Yes,
Right,
ma'am.
okay, because they literally, well, and do they have to be on site when we do summer conditioning?
They do not.
Okay.
They do not. We would like them on site as much as we possibly can. All of our coaches have to take a care and prevention course per MSDE and MPSSAA after the first year of coaching. They all get trained actually by our trainers and our athletic directors on AED use and cold water immersion, all part of the House Bill 836.
Okay.
Both of those bills, if you go in and take a look at the fiscal note,
No money.
they will say no impact.
Yeah.
Again, we agree with every single bill that's passed, anything that we do to support and keep kids happy and safe and athletically, like all, but all of this costs money. And so really, if we want to do a deeper comparison, we have to, first of all, do the amount of hours that these employees would be provided at the $39 rate, and then have some understanding of whether or not they're going to be raising that $39 rate next year, because it would sound like to keep somebody here, they're probably going to have to.
Yes, pay them more.
Yeah.
And that's the problem all jurisdictions are
You're
running
talking
into.
under the contract scenario.
Under contracted
contract
services,
scenario.
well, like, we're already seeing that 25%, they're almost 30% increase, and that's probably going to increase even more, so, yeah, this is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got 2 points. To your point, in Calvert County, we had a girl on our softball team that completely blew out her ACL, sat there writhing on the field for 10 minutes before they could find an athletic trainer because they were not at Huntington High School that day, right? Then, just separately, at another softball game, we had someone over the summer that was airlifted out, not within the school system because of a collision on the field. So there are things like that happen, and it's not even like supposedly a contact sport.
Right.
So, and if we are blowing through our contracted amounts by the time we get to the spring sports semester or seasons, then that's certainly not serving any of our students
And
or their safety.
We have had dedicated athletic trainers for a while, and so we're fortunate, again, with our relationship with ProFlex, but more fortunate that our schools and our athletic trainers have provided a great atmosphere that people want to stay. So we've been fortunate to have 3 of 3 trainers and at our high schools, and
Right.
moving forward, jurisdictions are going to be squabbling over these athletic trainers. They're not readily available.
Right.
So to get on the front end of that would be very
Okay.
beneficial
Well, and I
for
mean,
us.
I think it all through our high schools, the ones we have now, I think they work very well in concert with the ADs and the coaches, so, okay.
And I definitely think it's very important that we haven't gotten through all their hours like by the time we reach spring season, because spring season starts really cold, but then by the end of it, everyone's like drenched in sweat, and like there's a lot of athletes who will get some sort of heat-related injuries, and I don't know. I've seen that happen on my team. I play tennis in the spring, so that's just concerning, and I'm glad that we have athletic trainers to combat that. Yeah.
Well, I know we have the commissioners are always looking at our at our FTE numbers, so it's just we just have to make the case for it.
Yeah.
So, and once we get to regional and state play through MPSS, do they supply the trainers, or we still have to?
We still do, but when they go, they have medical personnel on standby, MPSSA.
But they're not. They're
we
not
still send our
actually there
trainers.
on the field necessarily.
And are they athletic trainers or are they EMTs?
Combination, depends on what's going on, the time of year, the sport.
Okay.
Sometimes there's multiple sports championships going on the same day and all over the state. So.
Right.
If it helps at all, at regionals, like a couple years ago at Annapolis High School, I had an ankle injury and I had to get my ankle taped, and I think it was by the athletic trainer for that the host high school. So yeah, I think that is how that
Typically,
goes.
we cover it. Sometimes they may cover the cost
Yeah.
for that extra event for us. Once we get to state semis and finals, we would most likely provide the trainer, but sometimes NPSSAA would cover the cost of that trainer.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Athletic trainers?
No, I'll ask my other question
All right.
when we get to the health section.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, don't go away if it's gonna be about health, then Mr. Watson's gonna need
Yeah, don't go too far.
Okay.
to stay.
Take your seat.
Yeah,
Stay up front.
yeah.
Okay. Is your health question now, Kathy?
It has to do with AEDs.
Oh, well, then
The-
go ahead.
The fact that by the House Bill 836, we have to have AEDs easily accessible, and they sort of set that out as quick walk to that AED for whatever sporting event is going on, whether it's a practice or an event. And I know that the majority of our, if not all of our AEDs are located within our buildings.
Correct.
Not a quick walk to that AED to get it to the track, to the football field, to whatever. So
We
that
have-
to me says we're gonna have to buy more AEDs. Where is that considered within this budget?
So Mr. Wine and I have spoken about some additional AEDs through some grant opportunities, but also schools through their SAF accounts or through some other accounts we could buy portable AEDs.
Okay.
We've already talked about looking into outside AEDs that come with weatherproof covers and things like that that you can leave outside. But currently our practice is our trainers take an AED outside with them daily. They have one on their person.
Which
or
is
in their gaiter or
right.
whatever they have.
Which
they
is
have one with them.
Great if we have an athletic trainer
Correct.
there, but
Yes.
for the times we don't.
Yeah.
And-
Someone should be assigned, another coach should be assigned to take that AED out to that practice area. Choptacon's a challenge because practice fields are kind of opposite sides of the campus.
Right.
Leonardtown's not, and Great Mills are not so much of a challenge because all the practice facilities are kind of in the same area. So someone besides the trainer, if that trainer is not there, is assigned to take that AED out to practice.
Well, in the times that we've had to transport kids off-site in order to either, to an event here within the county, thinking of softball last year at Laurel Glen.
Laurel Grove, yeah.
Laurel Grove, yeah.
Not
How.
happening this year, right?
We have that same issue with all of our golf teams. Obviously,
Right.
travel off of campus for
Yeah.
practice and events, and depending on what's at those golf courses, we may or may not have a AED that's in accessible walkway. So there's a lot of variables to that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So I appreciate that you have gamed this out, no pun intended. So, thank you.
Okay, let's see, page 36. Category 71.
So this question was regarding impact in the classroom for the reclassification request.
Yes.
Dr. Mark?
So as you know, we have a comprehensive induction program for our new teachers. That's not only something that we feel strongly is valuable for our new teachers, but also as part of a COMAR requirement to provide a comprehensive induction program, beginning with an orientation session that begins in August. So currently, our instructional resource teacher who facilitates, plans, and provides that structure begins as a 10-month employee, so starting the last week of August when other teachers do. However, the induction period, as you know, starts in early August. So this reclassification would align the calendar of her work to the duties and responsibilities of the position that begin in the beginning part of August.
Okay. All right. That answered that. Let's see. Next one is on page 39. 7176. Oh, yeah.
Yes, this was a great question. So what we did was we provided notes because there was a budget submittal that was submitted by Ms. Bachner for $225,000 to support curriculum development. However, we have salary savings available this fiscal year, so we pulled the funding request and we'll be moving forward with that in late June. So we just neglected to eliminate the note from your
Perfect.
presentation.
Okay. All right. That was good. See, that was the easy one. Next page, 40. Curriculum workshop attendees. More details on the planned program, 7176 and,
69.
or 69.
I think there was such little print, you needed me to help a little bit. So, are you asking about the program of the collaboration with Sauterly?
Yes.
Okay. Each year we submit a student service learning report to the state of Maryland, and we are absolutely fine and compliant. But for the last several years, they have shared with us that they would like us to explore additional student service learning collaboration opportunities within our community. So I know Sauterly is very interested in working with us. So this money would be for us to work with Sauterly, our staff to work with Sauterly staff, to see what kind of student service learning opportunities that we could make as part of our student service learning projects. And if we do so, we're focusing in on it being an 8th grade project or 7th grade project, and doing that potentially as a pilot with Esperance and Spring Ridge as our first group to do that. So that money would help us with staff starting to have that collaboration with Sauterly.
So it would actually be, so it wouldn't be like field trips, it would actually be part of like a social studies or history class?
It would be a field trip, particularly, but it would be like, right now we do a student service learning field trip as part of ELMS with our 7th grade. This would be that we would do a like type activity with our 8th grade. So they do the pre-student service learning experience in their schools.
Okay.
You know, usually there's a pre-lesson, and then the field experience is actually going to the site, and then they do a post activity when they go back to the schoolhouse as
Okay.
part of student service learning.
Okay.
I can't remember, what is the current like student service learning structure for
It's
8th grade?
different per school. Every school has the
Okay.
ability to do some students. As I said, all 7th graders do the ELMS.
Yeah.
Because they would do tree planting there. So we do that as part of student service learning. But the high schools, really, those 9th and 10th grade is where we have student service learning. A lot of times those teachers develop their own student service learning projects, and they're approved by Mr. Wright and then the state.
Awesome.
Okay. All right.
Is the question?
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, I see.
Are there any other questions in this category?
I don't think so. Anyone else?
I don't
As you
have
went
any.
through, Dorothy? Okay. Keep on rolling there, Tammy.
So going to the next category, textbooks and instructional supplies, there was a requested increase of $2.6 million, or 57.7% increase to support smart panels and technology refresh for the schools. Spring Ridge Middle School and Lexington Park Elementary School network refresh for a new PA system, access points and switches, instructional software shift from grant funding, career and technology instructional materials, as well as $2 million to support the secondary math textbook adoption. And this is under tab E, and the first question was regarding art fees.
Yes, so
So I saw on the note, this is my
Okay.
question, so I saw on the note that we have thankfully eliminated the general art fee for the requirement.
I think we're gonna finally get there, yes, absolutely.
After
Done,
how
done,
many
done.
years? Look, Maureen's laughing at me. Right. But I didn't know if we were still requiring it for AVPA, because I know when we had talked about it, you know, we were trying to eliminate the fees for the graduation requirement courses. So I didn't know if it was gonna continue for AVPA
It
students.
does.
Okay.
We are not, I mean, excuse me, it does not. The students in AVP do not pay course
Additional.
fees
Okay.
for the courses that make up that program in the academy. Nobody in an academy should be paying for
Okay.
being in an academy.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure that it was, because I didn't know if there were AVPA fees, so I was asking in
There are
case there
not.
were, that they would be eliminated also.
Correct.
Okay, all right,
And I will extend that and say thank you for also removing the fees for our music students.
yeah, I didn't know there were, see, my kids don't do music, sorry, I didn't know about those. Okay, then, but someone did have a question.
So there was a question regarding charges for music fees for high school students.
Oh, that
And-
was me, because I didn't know that we had them, so.
Right, so we definitely
Yes.
are, you know, that regulation is beefed up so that we do have some things that are, for example, cleaning fees for uniforms. That is a fee, and then sometimes students rent instruments from us. If they're farms, we actually have a decreased or a free rental for them to do. And then if a student is participating in, for example, extracurricular marching band, not the marching band, that's a course, but the marching band that is completely extracurricular. Sometimes there's fees for them to compete and things like that are charged to the students.
Okay.
And then the next question presented was, how long is the renewal period? Another 6 years?
And that depends. That depends on what we choose as the renewal. The vendors, most would love us to do a 1-year renewal because that's the most high priced.
Right.
When we lump, years together. Typically, when we come by you all for renewals of textbooks or looking for textbook adoptions, we've been generally doing 6 years. That's when, but they do go yearly and they go all the way up typically to 8 years.
Okay, so that was my question again. So, especially for AP, because some of these were the AP courses. So, if we renew for the 6 years, as they update the content on the AP exams, that funnels down through to the content that is in these textbooks and rentals on the online pieces of it, correct?
And that's why we've been moving to making sure that we are purchasing, if not the online specifically, at least the textbook and the online, because of course the textbook is not going to be updated.
Right.
But the online is updated through our period of time that we have contracted with
Okay,
them.
I was just trying to ensure that we still had whatever we had online content, if we were gonna renew it for such a long time of 6 years, right, that we weren't, quote unquote, like handcuffing ourselves to this, textbook without having updates in the event that the AP courses are adjusted or changed.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
No.
On tab E? Okay.
The other instructional cost category reflected a decrease of $3,479. However, there were some increases within this category, specifically in dual enrollment, as well as overall decrease in contracted temporary hourly support, and that was as a result of the FY23 reallocation of staffing. There were a couple of questions submitted, and the first question was regarding the rental on page 61. Was that for Fairlead or Freshman Academy? That had previously been for Fairlead. Actually, that trip is no longer taking place, and I neglected to remove that from the budget submittal. So
We
that
found
would be my
$5,000 somewhere.
You did. You found us a few dollars. We'll talk about the other few dollars in a minute.
Exactly.
So the next question was, can we get a breakdown of per facility and locations? Mr. Watson? And this is for the athletic rental costs.
So in rental fees, we typically only rent the 3 swimming pools in our county. We rent St. Mary's College of Maryland. We rent CSM, which is now WAC, the Wellness Aquatics, or the, I forget what it's called, but Rec and Park now owns it, not CSM. And then we rent Great Mills Pool right next to Great Mills High School. So we spend about $15,000 approximately on our swimming pool rentals for our winter season. We also rent 2 bowling alleys for our corollary sports program, Lord Calvert in Calvert County, and also our base bowling alley, and that's roughly around $5,000. And then we typically have some indoor track cost for rentals for PG Sports and Learning Complex for our indoor track programs. That roughly runs around $5,000 as well.
Okay. And the 5th grade field trip for swimming, is that included in here, or that's just a per?
So that
student
has
cost?
not gone since COVID.
Right, I
So
understand. Okay.
yeah, we haven't done that in about 2 or 3 years now. The CSM had trouble finding lifeguards that were able
Right.
to perform those activities, so we have not done that. in
That is
last
on
2
the
or 3
list to be discussed.
With CSM?
No, CSM doesn't run the aquatic
Oh, that's
center
right, with
anymore.
Parks and Rec, sorry,
Yeah,
that's right,
Parks and
because it
Recs.
was CSM, okay.
The 5th graders love that idea. So
Oh yeah, no, I mean
Yeah.
I think it was a fantastic program.
it was fun when
Yeah.
I did it. It was really
Yeah.
fun.
They
and
had
informative.
a little instructional period of
Oh,
an
yeah.
hour, and then
Yeah,
they were in
I
the
know. Yeah,
pools
mine-
actually and learning.
My
learning
kids were
those.
dinosaurs, they had the computer labs and the swimming benefits,
Yeah.
so.
We're not even dinosaurs. I'm like 17. This is crazy.
And those classes also have the ability to save lives as well.
Yes.
Because we had an incident years ago where a student was able to save the life of a couple siblings who wanted to go in the water for another one. So it does save lives, and people wonder, you have all that water down there, you know, what do? And that's what we do. We had those safety classes that were held at CSM, which are now run by Department of Recs and Parks. So, yeah, that is worthy of future discussion.
Yeah, and for the record, for that, you don't have to be able to swim to
Correct.
partake in that course. It's
Yes,
more
that's
of
right.
water safety.
Water safety.
Would help, but you don't
Right,
have to.
exactly.
In the shallow end.
I've been down there and seen them in action, and the students really, just like you say, they love that program.
Yeah. And it was a good experience because once you're in 5th grade, there are some kids who are like pros at swimming, right? But there are other kids who maybe didn't grow up like swimming all the time, and they're a little hesitant or apprehensive, and by the end of the day everyone feels much better in the water. So that's the goal. We're surrounded by water. I feel
Right.
like we should be,
Right.
comfortable there.
Nothing money can't fix.
Yeah. Oh, there it is.
Quite frankly, I'm hearing that we should build a pool, because I think that'd be a great idea, or we should, we
Maybe
should
a
build a
one water
bowling
pool.
alley. St. Mary's County desperately needs a bowling alley. We need to build
Oh
a
yeah,
bowling
we don't
alley.
have one except for
You
the
know.
police.
Alley,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Esperanza Lanes is still there. I don't know if it's being used, but it's been
No,
shut down for years.
it's been closed for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, nothing else in tab F.
So, special education, we have several questions, so I'm going to ask Ms. Ellis to start making her way up here. There was a requested increase of $1.4 million, or 6.8% increase, to support funding for salary increases, high roads contract increase, non-public placements, reallocation of Blueprint Pre-K expansion positions from restricted for 5 positions, reallocation of the TIDES program from restricted 9 positions, and 2 new secretarial positions. And the first question is on page 73 of your document, is regarding the TIDES teacher, and how does the increase in special education teachers affect the teacher-student ratio that we report?
So this funding will allow us to maintain the current ratio of teacher students, because the funding is moving from a grant that is no longer an option to the general fund.
Okay. Right, we're not, so it's, our level of services are staying the same, we're just moving the money from one to the other, from,
Because the grant
yeah,
expires.
I got it. Okay.
There was a question regarding the high roads increase, and I can actually take that. This was a shift from the ESSER funds, which has been supporting the high roads program over the last couple of years. So in FY24, the ESSER 2 funds will go away. There is a rate increase projected of 4%.
Okay. From that High Roads has projected.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
The next question is, what is equipment? And I actually have that one as well. So when we budget for new positions, we budget for technology, desk equipment, chairs, and at a rate of about $3,000 per person. So when we were moving over the TIDES program positions, we had planned for them to be new, but they're really not new positions. So their equipment is coming with them. So that $15,000 is actually going back in our coffers. We'll be eliminating that.
So look at that. You've already cut money.
I know
You've
this
cut
is
$20,000 so far. Look at that.
So, are there any other questions? Oh, yes. Is another question with regard to TIDES, is it core subjects that are reinforced and then students return to the classroom for all of their other subjects?
And that really is dependent on the student themselves. It is based on their individualized education plan. It could be during core classes. Those students we are looking at a 40% of the day inclusion. So that could be lunch, recess, it could be core classes, it could be special area classes. It really depends on the student needs and where they're really showing their success.
Okay.
So we have one question for the charter school with regard to special education, but before Ms. Ellis leaves, do you have any additional questions?
Right. Anyone else on special education that's not at the charter school?
Nope. Not for me.
And the charter school question is with regard to the contracted therapist account.
So I believe the question was, do we break down our costs? And the answer to that question would be yes. This particular line item is for our speech and language pathologist. So basically, we're looking at her caseload and the number of service hours she needs to provide, looking at the current year that we're in and projecting out for what we will need in the future. This gives us 3 days a week with our speech therapist, and with a case matrix of 11% of our population. It's been appropriate for the last 5 years, and we believe that it will continue to be so.
Okay. Good. Anyone else?
We have Ms. Funya here. Do we have any other questions so that maybe we could?
I don't know if we have anything else
I didn't see anything else.
There were no other questions that were presented for the charter school?
I don't think we have anything else on the charter school.
She's been here for a while, and I just, I know you're itching to.
Make it worth my time.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, I can ask her questions if you
No,
want.
do you want anything ad hoc
So-
off the cuff? It's just,
All right, see, Scott, you open the door. All right, so,
that was
for
that was
the,
not my intention. I was
So-
trying to get you out the door.
but I mean, but for the speech therapist, is that is just, and I'm not at all I'm gonna struggle through this because I'm not all gonna use the right words, but it's not necessarily for ESOL students who are struggling with language. It is actual, right, it is actual
Yeah.
speech therapy,
Yes.
right?
As defined on an IEP, yes.
Perfect, okay, all right. See, that was an easy one.
Medical, physical disability. Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Just to be clear with everyone.
Okay.
The next category is student personnel services. There's a requested increase of $1.1 million, or a 78.1% increase to support funding for salary increases as well as workforce development career counseling.
And again, that $1 million is going to come, in theory, directly from the state, be embedded in foundation funding. So the $2 million that supposedly we're increasing our foundation funding, $1 million of that comes to us and goes right out the door to the Tri-County Workforce Development Board.
And is that run through the Tri-County Council? Is that where that's, is that where that's residing?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it gets submitted to us from the state and county and then out the door.
And it's,
I'm saying the Tri-County whatever this Workforce Council
Ruthie
is
Davis,
part
yeah.
of the Tri-County Council, correct?
Oh, I have no idea.
Like where, like,
I think it's through the Department of Labor.
Labor, yeah.
but
So I
a
don't
state,
have it.
but a state agency
No.
or
No.
I thought it
a
was,
county agency?
it's not the local management board.
No.
It's the local
Yeah.
workforce.
So that's my question. Like,
You
I'm
don't
fine
have
for-
a local, like a St. Mary's County. Again, this is the blueprint. This is the ticky-tack details of the blueprint. They're supposed to give us $62 for every single child who's enrolled in school, and that $62 is supposed to be transmitted to us, through us, to a workforce development board in the county under a signed MOU.
But
that
like,
is-
so like when we have to cut the check for 1.2, like who are we giving the money to?
Or where,
Tri-County
yeah.
Council, Dr. Marr just pulled it up.
It is the Tri-County Council. Okay. And the Tri-County Council is made up of the delegation, the Southern Maryland delegation from all three counties, and selected county commissioners that want to serve on the Tri-County Council, correct? And Scott Alstrow, I think, is our representative. So then my charge would be to the Tri-County Council is what are you going to do with this money?
Especially since it covers every single one of our students, but not every one of our students by a large number will be utilizing or accessing whatever services they're supposed to provide. And Dr. Marr, what accountability does this group have for spending this money, and then who do they have to explain how they spent it and what the outcome was?
We are awaiting guidance. We have regular meetings with both the Accountability and Implementation Board as well as the Blueprint coordinators across the state. These are questions that we have asked specifically for clarification about the MOU requirements for this, for the Workforce Development Board allocation, because the Blueprint calls for the funding to be provided for career counseling, but that's all it says. So in the legislation, it also calls for an MOU with the school system, the Workforce Development Board, and the local community colleges. So How that MOU is structured would, I think, define what that accountability is, because we would outline specific activities that are funded for it, and then ask for, the AIB would then ask for documentation, I guess, on how it was spent relative to what's in the MOU. But we are, again, waiting for guidance specific to what can be included in that MOU.
But it must be in collaboration with the school
Right.
districts.
Right.
We have to concur and sign with enter into an MOU.
And I'm not sure how to ask this question without being really direct. So I guess I will just say that when this money goes out, in whatever fashion it goes out, that I would expect that there will be information, detailed information brought back to this board. And I mean, this is just me talking, so if you guys are all fine with this, let me know. That they don't have to do this, but I would expect to see how they're spending that money so that we understand what it's being spent on, what the outcomes are, so that if we need to advocate through MABE or to our delegation to say,
But the delegation's part of the Tri-County Council.
yes, but I want to know
Right? I mean, that's
how,
what-
how much are they eyes on, paying attention, and then understanding how it's all rolling out here.
So what I hear you saying, Kathy, is that when we write this MOU with these people, you want a report now to come from them to us. So now we get the reports,
my
right?
I think the taxpayers deserve to
I
understand
completely
how the
agree.
money is being spent.
Accountability.
Pardon me?
You are seeking local accountability.
I am seeking local accountability.
Right.
Well, keep in mind, there's 3 different school systems,
I know,
3
I
different
know,
boards,
I
3
know.
different superintendents.
I know.
1 community college, 1 tri-county board, $4 million that will be provided to them over the next 3 years.
Right. And then it's sunset.
And then it goes away. So if they are, I mean, $4 million is a staggering amount of money for, like, I don't know what their operational budget is right now, but it's got to be pretty lean.
And is that,
It's barely nothing.
And I have no idea what the Workforce Development Board is going to do for our kids, since our kids aren't really connected to the Workforce Development Board right now, because their job is to help people secure employment.
and are you saying that $4 million is coming just from St. Mary's County?
Oh, no,
That
that's
they're
from-
getting,
no,
that's
no.
from all 3 counties?
three
Oh,
counties.
next,
$1
okay.
million from
Yeah.
St. Mary's.
And about $1 million
Okay.
from Calvert, and about almost $2 million
Right,
from.
yeah, you had just mentioned over the next 4 years, and
Yeah, no,
But-
it's going to be $12 million in the next 4 years, and I don't know what they're, and for, again,
It's more money
somebody,
than they've ever seen before in their
somebody
life.
wrote it, somebody passed it, it's in law, and I don't know.
Maybe we could give it to them and then they could give it back and charge us with doing our workforce.
Let's not enter into another
Right.
circular accounting.
Maybe we better
nightmare.
wait until Dr. Marr comes back with additional information.
Well, he can come back with additional information, but right now he's saying that the AIB or no one has given any direction. I think we need some type of framework.
We had
This is
this-
$1
yeah.
million, right?
Right.
$1 million that is going to an organization that I do not right now, as I sit here and struggle to remember, has the infrastructure to execute anything that they have been charged with, right?
Well, I don't know what they're being charged with. The thing is, like,
Right.
again, career counseling doesn't mean anything.
Right.
How are you going to career counsel a 13-year-old?
Right, so that's what I'm saying. I mean, yes,
So,
I appreciate
so
the
I
fact
guess
that we
that
need more
we're,
information. but
Monica, we're
also-
going to career counsel you.
Thank you.
I'm not 13.
No, no. Quite frankly, you're a finished product. But I mean, close to. What? Again, this is the blueprint for Maryland's future, where somebody had a great idea. It's built in there. Everybody's saying you're getting all this money from the state. Well, they're giving us $1 million, but we can't spend it. It goes to somebody else, and we're not sure how they're going to spend it. And so, one of the things we discussed was specifically this would be the Apprenticeship Maryland program, where students themselves can make $4,000 through the program and whatever. Wow, this would totally fund a super comprehensive, awesome paid internship program for the Tri-County area. And we were provided informally, anecdotally, that absolutely not. It can't be used for that.
Yeah, and also career counseling, a 13-year-old. I feel like none of us knew what we wanted to do with our lives at all, and that's okay. I feel
Well,
like that was fine.
When all of this was going through again, I go back to the high school task force where all these people that then went on and passed legislation, they said, how are kids finding out what's going on? We need to do something. And so we said, well, we have Naviance and we
Yeah.
do this and here's all the ways we do it. And they said, yeah, that's great. We need to create something totally different and complete. And it's like, well, we already have this. We're already doing all of this. Why couldn't we just say, here's the money to make sure that you keep doing that really, really well?
Yeah. Naviance works really well. Like, it has a slew of resources.
Yeah.
And I will admit, I didn't take advantage of them as much as I probably could have until senior year, because now I'm a senior and you have to use Naviance, so, yeah.
Right. When it's important to you, it's important.
Yeah.
Until it's important to you, it's not important.
Yeah.
No matter how much somebody wants to make something important to other people, if it's not important to them, it's not.
Yeah.
And my point is just the fact that we're talking about the budget. This is a significant
$1
amount of
million.
money, and I just want to get out on the ground floor. I know you guys are way ahead of me, but I think people
Well, we
need
won't-
to hear that
We won't
I want
distribute
the
any money.
accountability.
We won't.
Well, we have had the chair or the director of the Workforce Development Board on our steering committee for our blueprint implementation team. So we have had conversations with them and have invited them. It's outside of it being a part of as Dr. Smith said, the requirements of the blueprint. They've been a collaborative entity in the Tri-County area, but they have not had the breadth of service that the blueprint is calling for.
But what is their charge? Like, what do they do?
My understanding is they've worked with folks who are working towards a career, but most of that has been for post-high school graduates, not for current students. That's been my understanding.
Is that the group that, among other things, they have like a traveling entity, I'll say like a bus or something that you can go to, and if you want to use a computer in order to develop
Like the
a
Career
resume,
Connections bus?
you know,
Like the Career Connections bus?
yeah,
Okay.
okay,
Is that what it is?
okay, all right.
All right. And do we have a representative on the Tri-County Council, or we just we like from SMCPS, or we just assume it comes through?
Not to my knowledge. We have folks within our team who are working with the Workforce Development Board. Particularly, a lot has transpired over the last couple of months as we work to unpack the blueprint. But as far as an official member, I don't believe we do it from the school system side.
Okay. All right. These are all my questions, because literally I was going through. I'm like, I wonder where that $1 million is that we have to give away. And then I flipped the page and there it was. So, but
We can certainly provide more information at our upcoming blueprint when we update you on the blueprint for the next round.
I don't
certainly
expect you to have
provide-
any more information than what you already have, because they're not gonna have it. So maybe it'll just be a nice dollar amount that we can use at the end of the year and plow back into something else. I don't know.
You keep believing that.
So for the next 4 years, we will pay this amount?
Yep.
3
Or
Three
is
years.
this
3 years. 3 years.
24, 25, and 26.
Okay.
And really, the state's paying, and this is the part that I'm challenged with. For the life of me, why give us the money to give to somebody else? Just
Right,
give
just
the
give it
money
to
to
them
them,
first.
and then you're responsible for all the little nits and butts and pieces and
Right.
stuff that you all have to do.
That is very confusing. Like, that
Well, again,
whole,
instead
of just like,
the AIB puts the school systems in charge of everything. We're to form MOUs with childcare. We're to form MOUs with higher ed. We're to form MOUs with the workforce development boards. We're like, and yet all of the money is to be spent at the school level, and all of the emphasis is on compensation for teachers. I struggle. I'm looking at the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland Workforce Development staff. It looks like underneath Ruthie Davis, there are 5 people working outreach and business and youth services manager and a workforce operation manager and a workforce oversight manager, one-stop. It looks like they're perfectly built to be the Apprenticeship Maryland program coordinators, overseers, like that looks like that's exactly what that's supposed to be. So of course we're gonna keep on going back to that, because that makes sense to all of us. that they would be ultimately the ones coordinating, because they're under DLL and all of that stuff. It makes sense that they would be the ones that would help us coordinate the Apprenticeship Maryland program.
Well, and you know who it's gonna fall to? It's gonna fall to the 3 superintendents in order to drive that and build that and do that, right? With money that we've given them.
So you do the work, they get the cash. Got it.
It'll all be.
Okay.
Any additional questions under student personnel?
I don't see any. We're all good.
No.
Health
I
services.
think health services is the next one.
There was a requested increase of $96,000 or 3.2% to support funding for salary increases as well as the reclassification of a mental health coordinator. There was one question submitted here, Ms. Long. Specifically, how old is the equipment? How many health workers are trained to use the equipment? Are they portable and how are they being replaced?
And that is the vision screening machines that we have. They are anywhere from 10 to over 20 years old. I know. So
The
just
colors have faded.
yeah. So as they break down, we replace them. But there is a new vision screener. It's called the Spot Vision Screener, and that's what we've been replacing them with because it's a more current technology, up to date. It takes like 1 or 2 seconds to complete that screening, where in the past the other machines, took like 15 minutes to get
the cards
through that.
in.
Yep, exactly. And so all the school nurses are trained to use the equipment. As part of COMAR, they have to do that screening for students upon entry into school. We do that in pre-K and kindergarten if they didn't go to pre-K, 1st and 8th grade. And then I just wanted to say that, we're using Title IV funding, Title IV Part A actually, to help us in replacing those machines. So with that funding, if we are to purchase 1 spot screener, then we get grant funding to purchase 3 additional ones. So that has been to our advantage this year
Right.
and next year as well.
Fantastic.
Yep, yes.
Okay. I believe that second question was already answered by Mr. Watson. Are there
Yes.
any other questions for Ms. Long?
Okay, thank you.
You are released. It's kind of like, releasing people that once they get their homework done and you just like, you get to go to, Miss Long gets to go to recess, have some lunch.
Student transportation, there was a requested increase of $758,000 or 3.3%. To support funding for salary increases, contracted bus PBA increase, hourly contracted driver attendant rate increase, fuel rate of $6 a gallon, maintenance and operations fee increase, healthcare trust contribution increase, and 1 replacement bus. There were no questions submitted in advance. Are there any questions now?
For me.
I think he's
He's like perfectly hiding behind Mr. Howard. I can't even see him. He's like.
So under operation of plant, there was a $3 million request, or 15.5% increase to support funding for salary increases, safety and security assistance for the elementary schools, 18 of them. New computer support specialists, 2, a new cybersecurity engineer, 2 new building service workers, a reclassification in an information technology specialist to IT project coordinator, the upgrade of video surveillance system, replacing the Letty Marshall Dent Elementary School fire alarm system, contractual inflationary increases, utilities, and replacement vehicles. I believe there was a question from Mr. Wyatt regarding the security measures and the increases that we requested in that account. And this is under tab K of your binder.
So, Mr. Wayne, I think this was probably my question, just,
Sure.
Since we put all this stuff in the budget and then it comes forward more specifically, so just to give everyone kind of a general idea of what you're thinking
Right,
with all of this for the.
Very specifically, the $450,000 is for the upgrade to our security camera software systems. Traditionally, this funding has supported, the $100,000 that has been there has supported the licensing for the camera systems and the software, the Raptor visitor management and emergency management systems, our volunteer background screening, as well as our fingerprinting system software requirements. We have been working on this for over 2 years now. We know, technology advances. And quite frankly, our software for our camera system, it is utilized every single day, every hour of every single day, in both in schools for law enforcement support, emergency management response, those kinds of things, is becoming antiquated. The new technology includes analytical platforms, which are very significant to the extent that we've seen demonstrations, we've looked at this. You can actually program the camera system, the software. You can say, find me someone who's wearing a light blue shirt and khaki pants in a building. You push the button and it searches actively in the building and it finds those individuals. That, from an emergency response standpoint, is tremendously critical. There's lots of different layers with that. Also, the other pieces are, with the advancement of software, the integration with all of our other security systems, our door monitoring and those kinds of things. Bottom line, we've gotten some rough pricing on that. It's about $500,000, we think. We applied for a federal grant, the School Violence Prevention Program grant. You may remember that we presented that late last spring, and we were notified in October that we were not going to be an award recipient this year. That money is, as you can imagine, is becoming tougher to obtain. I'm sure that much of that went to some other jurisdictions that unfortunately had tragedies there. And at this point in time, we felt it's best to move forward with this, placing it in the budget. So that is the primary reason for that requested increase. The good news is, as these advances have occurred, it appears that the majority of this will not be recurring. Even there's one platform that we saw that once we acquire the software, it is ours for a lifetime. And then all we need to do is program in, for example, every 2-3 years, if we want to, and upgrade if we find it to be necessary. No licensing with that at all. But that's one. And until we, of course, until we get into the bidding process and we understand the vendors and those kinds of things, we won't have exact figures, but right now it sits at about $500,000.
But we knew this was coming because when we first went to, had the cameras everywhere, I think your presentation, a few years ago was, that this is going to be recurring every so often
Yes.
to upgrade.
Absolutely.
Right? Just as technology and things become,
100%.
obsolete.
It's all part of strategic planning and just trying to, when we can find the money to advance our systems to make them the best they can be for our students and staff.
And then with the upgrade to the Raptor system, and I don't know if you know the answer, so with Maryland allowing the online IDs now, right? So
Yes.
I can download my driver's license into my Apple Wallet.
Yes.
How does that impact the scanning of Raptor when I go into a building?
It should not, as long as the QR code or the barcode system exists, it should be able to read those government issued
Because if it comes up, it says, take your phone and place it, tap it wherever it needs to go.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually we have a meeting coming up with Raptor, actually next week,
Okay.
a review meeting, and I will ask that question because we're also talking to them about emergency management integration with our new public address systems that we're putting in.
Okay.
What's going to be really good is our Raptor reunification component is going to be able to talk to the visitor management system and vice versa, as well as the public address system notifications. The new public address system notifications, you're going to be able to push a button at a school if you're an administrator and activate lockdown. That's going to go right to Raptor and initiate the emergency management software, as well as our county's 911 center is now going to go direct to the 911 supervisor, and they're going to dispatch support as needed. So there's a lot of great technology advancements that are occurring.
All right, because I was up at, and the reason I'm asking, I was up at Anne Arundel County at their central office building last week. So they did not, they would not recognize the online
Right.
ID. They still had to run it through the scanner in order to check us all
Right.
in.
Yeah, and we will absolutely ask that question, but I
Okay.
do believe that they should be able to advance that, for
Okay.
sure, yes.
Anyone else?
So regarding that, are you referring to like the things on the outside of doors that like let SMCPS employees in, or like the
No.
visitor thing?
So
that,
when I go to the office, like if
Yeah.
I want to check in, they have to scan my ID.
Yeah,
and then,
me too, yeah.
Right, and then, but no, like my physical, like if I don't
Yeah,
have, if I don't have a school ID,
Yeah.
then they scan it to make sure I'm not,
Your
a
driver's
wanted
license or
criminal
whatever.
or anything.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So
The thing that you
now,
like put your license
yes,
into, yeah.
exactly. So
Toaster.
now
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
everything,
The toaster.
So it's,
Yes.
I mean, that's what they call it.
Right.
That's what we call it. That's
That's
the-
But now,
That's so real.
right, but now that Maryland's authorizing and I think there's only like 2 or 3 states
Right.
that actually have the online ID, and Maryland's one of them. I'm like, what is that going to do?
What's the protocol?
So have you
Right.
been able to do that?
What?
Actually make a digital ID?
Yeah, and they actually
Okay.
accepted it when I was at the airport.
Yeah, I started doing it, then it got tripped up and it kicked me out and said I wasn't on. I'll have to go back and.
Well, my daughter Helen did it first, because everything in college is clearly on her phone.
Right.
So she did it first, and then you go through, and then this is so off the budget, but then they send you a letter that says that they have authorized it, and then you can click on it, and then it literally has loaded all of your driver's license. Like my driver's license picture is now on my phone.
Oh, neat.
So,
Yeah,
and
I
then
mean,
all I
you know,
have to do is set it there. Like when I checked in through TSA, I just set it there and it scanned up, and my whole driver's license came up on their screen.
So then they know where we are.
They do. Just want to share one little quick thing. On the passport side, you got to be careful because some countries aren't going to take that. If you go with it on your phone, you could be sent back.
You could still need
It
your.
happened to one of my friends.
Yeah,
not too long
yeah,
ago.
yeah. I'm not that advanced to do the passport yet,
Yeah,
but I
be
just
careful.
figured, So.
Before we have Mr. Wyant leave, I would like to answer a question and then provide a further insight because this came up on Tuesday. We weren't afforded the opportunity to go forward.
We're not.
For the security vestibules, I want to be very clear that all of our buildings, all of our schools have some form of a vestibule and a process to screen as they go in. What we're systematically doing at every single one of our schools is creating an entire vestibule with a kiosk, with a pass-through, with a supporting in the back, with a like it is a comprehensive security envelope for the school. We have how many elementaries left that need to have this work done?
10.
10.
10 sites right now. 5 will be done with the help of design and construction and supporting services over the summer. So we'll have 5 going into next school year. That's what we hope for.
So can you approximate the cost for the 5 that are left?
Absolutely.
So-
I've already talked to Ms. Lana and Mr. Shamlepper. They are working on that. But we have a square footage estimate. We just want to take a look at. And as Paola here, I think she could add to what we're getting into is we've saved the best for last, so to speak. There's some significant construction
Right. I remember. Yep.
renovation.
Yes.
So we've done the ones we could do as quickly as possible, prioritizing on need, those kinds of things. But now we're getting into someone more complex. And the really good news is the Maryland Center for School Safety funding, the grants are coming out each year now too. So we should be able to afford at least one per year if we use that money, utilize that money for that as well.
Well, from my walkaway was that I do want to have that work a little bit expedited so that we can send a letter over to the county commissioners detailing the sites and the cost so that they might make that consideration
Before that.
at the next.
Yes,
I don't know. I mean, who knows when it could come up? But let's have that set aside because these are all one-time funds.
Well, if we send it over, then we could always discuss it jointly at our joint meeting.
Right. That's the first thing. The second thing, we're asking for 18 safety assistants for elementary schools, a security vestibule, and a protective envelope and a security camera system certainly keeps people safer in its actual physical, but you need to have somebody on the other side of that window. And when we first put all of this in place, we did a cost analysis of exactly what this was going to cost to have a dedicated safety assistant and an employee of St. Mary's County Public Schools, a fully benefited full-time FTE, all of these things. It has been in the budget, and we take it out each year as we find ourselves facing a funding amount that doesn't afford it. Mr. Wyant, Mrs. McCourt, all related staff, they have figured out a way to scrub together funds, to hire people part-time, to do hourly, to do all of these things to give some level of security to our elementary schools. But that's 18 positions, that's $1 million, and enthusiastically as everybody supports school safety, understand the other side of it is safety assistance at every elementary school, $1 million request, that's baked in there. That's not something I'm going to be taking out of the budget regardless of where we find ourselves to send over across the street. Because if we're going to do security vestibules, we're going to have bodies on the other side of that, and and we don't have someplace else to pull from it. The Maryland Center for School Safety, which although I applaud the work of the group, it's not as though they are trafficking hundreds of millions of dollars that can then go out to school systems to actually make a difference, nor is MSDE or any legislator actually talking about providing the funding to school systems to make sure that they have the security personnel that they need to stem the crisis of what we see.
Well, plus from the Maryland Center for School Safety, there's also a big push now to provide funding to the non-public schools that that charge us
$80,000 a year to provide,
Right.
Yeah, please. So that's a major component of the operation of Plant Request, and we have put it forward every single year and then taken it out when the reality comes crashing down that we barely have enough money to fund the negotiated agreement or go into so understand that as enthusiastically people want to pay to do hardening of a building, that building is only truly hardened when you have somebody who's on the other side of the glass.
Absolutely.
So good times.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The other question that was submitted was for rental costs under operations. Mr. Barney?
I saw that, our FY '21 and '22 totals were significantly higher. The FY '23 is way down, but that doubling in $10,000, but it's still $10,000.
Perhaps you can elaborate on the fact that 7295 was separated for some years to accommodate for the leasing of the Mini Moakley next door.
Okay.
And they were put back together. I don't know if I'm using the right word.
You are. So embedded in this account did include in FY '21 and '22 the Mini Moakley leasing costs. So of course that's gone away now that we own it.
Right.
So what's included in the $20,000?
The portion of that account that I manage, expenditures primarily support high school graduation ceremonies.
Oh, okay.
Pre-COVID, that was about $30,000, and it was facility rental and auxiliary air conditioning, auxiliary lighting, things like that.
Yeah.
During COVID, that was reduced because we were hosting graduation ceremonies inside of our own facilities and not needing that type of added infrastructure. Now that we're doing them outside at high schools, we're trying to raise that back up to $20,000 in order to support those ceremonies, audio, visual rental, things like that.
We need tents.
Yeah, that was, and not black AstroTurf on top of the platform.
We're working on that.
They'll try to cook us last year.
We're building our own state. We got a plan. It's going to be great.
I know.
It's going to be a great graduate. It's going to be an awesome. It's going to be awesome.
It was great last year.
It's going to be. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be the best graduation.
Release the doves. It's going to be great.
Thank you.
I appreciate the
Are
information.
there any additional questions for operations?
I think we're all good.
Okay. Next category is maintenance of plant. There's a requested increase of $1.7 million or 37.7% increase to support funding for salary increases, a new maintenance team lead to support work-based learning, contractual inflationary increases, equipment replacement, contracted painting, building repairs, as well as roofing maintenance. I believe there was one question submitted, Mr. Beavers. Specifically, is there any increase in the FTEs in order to support the reduction in completion time and work orders?
Okay, so the team lead position is also an in the field position. So our team leads not only manage others' work, they also work in the field. We have 3 open full-time vacancies right now, and because of the contract, when we post our vacancies, internal applicants apply, normally get the nod. What we expect is that at the end of the school year, or in a couple months, that we're going to be left with maintenance 1 and 2 vacancies. In addition to, we have 3 part-time maintenance 1 vacancies. So the idea is that this person would lead that work. We're working with Ducks and Partnerships. We have an intern now who says he's going to join us when he's done. So we want to continue that trend. We've deferred a lot of projects that are aesthetically pleasing because we have to have air conditioning, electric, and plumbing primarily. So we'd like to assemble a grounds crew to kind of help us keep up with beautification type tasks, as kind of a counter or an antidote to some of the funds that we lose on the operating side to do more critical work.
Right. This was my question, because I know before Mr. Witten left, we had the presentation about the work order and how the days to completion were, the whole chart was going up like this. So, but I guess it doesn't help to give you any more FTEs if you have 3 that you can't fill right now.
Well, and that's, we would take 20 new people if we could have them and secure them.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my only question as to what, and then when I saw that 1 increase, whether or not that would also have an impact on, bringing that work order completion ratio,
Gotcha.
days to completion down, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
The fixed charges category includes an increase of $4.1 million, or 7% increase to support Social Security increases associated with the salary increases. Pension increase, health insurance increase has been estimated at 5% at this time, as well as the general liability and workers' compensation insurance. And there was 1 question submitted for this category, and that is how many vehicles are under our insurance policy. We currently have 390 vehicles. That's 119 vehicles that are not buses, 25 owned buses, and 246 contracted buses. Any additional questions for fixed charges? In the capital outlay category, there was a requested increase of $1.1 million, or 123%, to support funding for salary increases, building modifications, capital infrastructure and facilities management software, as well as Oakville Elementary School furniture replacement. And there was 1 question presented for this category.
It sounds so formal, capital predictor enterprise implementation. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Let's hear more about that. That
Yes, what is
sounds
that?
totally cool.
It is a very comprehensive piece to our ability to do our work, and it actually encompasses 2 parts. And Dr. Beavers has joined me. There's 2 pieces. The first is Asset Essentials, which would be a replacement of our current work order system. The second piece of that would be in my shop, which would be the Capital Predictor Enterprise. This is a product called Brightly. Everybody probably knows it more as School Dude. I already run the energy management system for that. We use it for our utilization of reserving spaces as well. So we already have modules for this. I found out about this through Somerset, which is implementing portions of this at the same time. The beauty of the software is this. It comes in 2 parts. This is a major expense because of the implementation. The annual software would cost us a little less than $63,000 a year once fully implemented. But what they would do is they would come down and they would replace our work order system, and they would work with Dr. Beavers and myself as part of the implementation process. And knowing we've got to talk about the School Facilities Index and Maryland Condition Index, which is where we're going to get money from, they would come down and they would take all the information that is in the Comprehensive Maintenance Plan and the CIP. They would take all of our useful remaining life charts, our life cycle replacement charts. They would go out, they would inventory and assess at the same time each piece of equipment, flooring, ceilings, lighting, rooftop units. They would put a barcode on that piece of equipment. They would take all the information we have, work orders, maintenance information. They would take the drawings, the specs, the warranty information, the manuals for how to fix it, and associate it with that barcode. When a work order is issued, the tech goes out, they take their iPad, they scan it, they then have at that moment access to everything we know about that piece of equipment. If it's a warranty item, they know that they can go back and start working on the warranty piece. If it's something they need to fix, they have the OM manuals, the operating manuals for everything there. So that's on Dr. Beaver's side, which should assist with the processing of work orders. The way I would use that through Capital Predictor is it takes all that information and it helps us to start building projects. Part of that would be the FCI. I'd have an FCI, which is the Facility Condition Index for every piece of equipment that I can go then back because Bureau Veritas is using this exact same system for the state's assessments. Right now, I can look at that and I really can't question it without going out to the site and doing that. When I look at an assessment, I can then take the information, which is going to be an actual assessment of the equipment, not just the date that was on the piece of equipment. I can look at it and then I can go back to the state and say, on these 5 elements for this school, we want to challenge your results. What it will get us to is a better facility condition index score that when we start presenting our projects for approval, we can present our information to them versus them having, they will still go to theirs, but ours will be what we know to be true. The other piece of it is we'll be able to work together on our life cycle replacement cost. For now, I mean, if you look in the comprehensive maintenance plan, it served us well, but it'll tell you that an HVAC has a life expectancy of 25 years left. But as presented today, we know that we're replacing individual components of that. So we don't want to look at it as just the whole piece. We want to look at it as the individual units. Maybe I can see that they have 5 rooftop units that need to be done, and I can cluster those together and make that a project in its own. So it's going to be able to let us manipulate and understand our data in a way we cannot do right now.
And validate it.
And validate,
yes. And validate your assumptions that you have made so far.
Yes.
Correct?
And it will give us, as we are going for those very hard to get state dollars, we are going to have more information than the state will have and be able to support our projects. Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
So it is a
So see,
initial
it did
upfront
live up
cost.
to its very long name.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So, and I've already been in discussions with the state of, you know, if we're going down this route, other counties are looking to go down this route. How do we backfill this information instead of me having to take the state report that they send me when their inspectors go out and go through it line by line? Can I feed you my information, and then your assessors can look at our data, which is based on facts about each individual piece.
Right. That's outstanding. Wow.
Oh, it's a crazy cool piece of tech.
How
That
long-
and the software for all the video cameras and all of that. I mean, you know,
Does that because that all gets coded too, also?
video equipment and
It
I'm
can
talking about
be.
the-
So
for
this
security.
This can be expanded. We can then barcode in, because we'll have the line items to add into our database, we can barcode anything we want and add that data in. We could do all of the safety security equipment. The other piece of it that we were exploring for Mr. Varner's shop would be that the room could have a barcode on it. When his staff goes in to clean that room, he's preloaded it with all the things that need to be done for that particular section. They scan the barcode, it tells them they can go down and work through their list. And then he'll have the report back easily to be seen of what was done. Especially like during the summer, I could see that being helpful. So those were the conversations we were having with Brightly of all the other opportunities we could have to expand this in the future.
if only every employee had their own iPad. Oh, wow, that's right. We're going to be giving every employee their own iPad with distribution starting later this month because we used part of the Project Lead grant to order 2,500 iPads, and I've 2,300. I just saw the pictures of all the pallets and stuff. I mean, you know, so yeah, this is exceptionally intentional, very, very well thought out. I mean, there is an upfront cost that obviously has to be borne by us, but the long-term benefit, as far as like, are you being effective and efficient with your resources? I can tell you, we will be. We always have been, but I'm going to tell you that it'll be a lot easier to demonstrate that, given this suite of tools.
I mean, down to a very granular level, we'll be able to understand our equipment on a push of a button on an iPad.
Well, it prevents the state from challenging us on things because we now have validation.
So when we
Supposedly
did-
through the same software program they use.
Right, so we did the inspection this year at several schools. Ms. Lumpkins went to one school, I went to another, and in both instances, the assessor looked and said, you have this particular type of ceiling tile. Well, we know we didn't, but we walked the building 3 times to prove to the assessor that it wasn't there. For us, we would have been able to pull up all of our ceiling types or wall types and said, this is what we have, this is the asset number, what would you like to go look at?
And does the company come in and do the assessment, or do our people do that? Like
So
when you
in this,
barcode it?
Brightly will bring in their engineering team, and they will be doing a full assessment, not an inspection of the way Bureau Veritas does it. They come in and they look at the date that's on the boiler, for instance, and then they kind of give it a quick look at. And it will be a full-on facilities assessment, and they will come up with the true numbers.
Okay.
Which will put us in a better light than what the state has.
Okay. Okay.
But it will be all done by Brightly. They have a full implementation program. We would all be involved because we have to feed them a lot of information, and then they will verify and test with us back.
Okay.
About how long would it take to input all this data?
So in my initial conversations with Brightly, we're probably looking at about a 6-month, from the time we award, about a 6-month implementation phase. And then they also provide the training and other aspects of it to keep us moving. But in total, it'll probably take a full year to have everything where we know it is running comfortably, but about 6 months for implementation.
Thank you. Wow.
It's like Schoology for capital planning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay, thank you. Does anyone have anything else? All right, thank you. Thank you.
So at your next board meeting, we'll have the public hearing next week, and then followed by another work session, followed by your approval of the budget to go to the county commissioner. So are there any additional questions?
So I just have the board, so if is there anything that you saw in the budget documents when you reviewed them, or that was discussed today, any major changes? And by major changes, I mean like anything that was discussed that you're like, absolutely not, because now's the time, not that we can't do it later, but at least to give everyone a heads up as to make a case as to why we need it and or change it.
I've made the points I intend to make.
Yeah.
Anyone?
The only question I have, more to Dr. Smith, and the projections of enrollment for next year.
Right.
17,000 or something.
Yeah, I mean, our enrollment, the current forecast that we have for enrollment year over year is a modest and manageable increase. But there is development going on in St. Mary's County, high density in the Lexington Park, Great Mills area, in the Leonardtown area. When this starts rolling through, we're going to see 200, 300, 400 kids at a time added, and we are at capacity for all of our middle schools. We are over capacity at one of our high schools and close to capacity at the other 2. Our elementary schools are, sooner or later, somebody's going to have to recognize that you have to forward fund and invest in and build in advance where we're going to be. But as far as the next several years, I think our enrollment is going to continue to grow at a similar pace as we've seen until these developments are in, they're built, and then they're populated.
And then if in fact we have to add all these extra people, you got to have lead time to build new facilities.
Oh yeah. Oh,
It's, I mean, we're talking years and years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, so we can see it. It's to build a new school. We're talking really from the idea to the opening is going to be at least 4 or 5 years.
But also keep in mind, so I mean, we hit on the large swings in the budget, right? That came out, but the incremental increases that we had are still also somewhat being driven by the 40% farm students that we now have, right? And the additional services that are required for the the children that are on free and reduced meals, and the whole support system that we provide for them as well, right? So it might not be a specific budget line item that we can point our finger to, but that's what's sprinkled through the entire budget.
The history of St. Mary's County proper, 50% of all the revenue taken in property and income historically went to fund our schools. The question we need to ask is, 50% of all the revenue, is it going to schools any longer? That's going to be, that should be a question that, and if it's not, then what is taking precedent over the schools, and why aren't the schools seeing half of the revenue that's coming into the county? Where is that money being spent? So.
Okay. All right, with that, you're done.